WhatsApp has a new challenger in India. Zoho's Arattai is climbing up the charts in India. It's now amongst the most downloaded apps in the country. The word Arattai in Tamil translates into chit-chat or casual talk. The app's traffic has soared over 100 times in the last few days, rising from over 3,000 sign-ups a day to more than 4 lakh per day. It's not just this messaging app. Zoho is throwing down the gauntlet to big tech companies with its product suite. Zoho has an office suite with over 50 products covering customer relationship, accounting, HR, document editing, presentation, and many more. This directly challenges global giants like Microsoft, Google, and Salesforce, among others. So what is working in favor of Zoho? The products are made in India and the company wants to be interoperable like the UPI. The company hosts its own data in India and is not dependent on global cloud service providers like Microsoft Azure or Amazon's AWS. But Zoho does face challenges as well. How will it overcome the network effects of global tech giants which have huge installed bases? Can it compete against Silicon Valley's scale and capital? And what about monetization and building a lucrative business model? To answer all of this and more, we're joined by the man behind Zoho, Sridhar Vembu, who's now the chief scientist. Sridhar Vembu, Arattai Arambika Lama.
Arambika. Let's start.
Well, let's start, sir. You know, I want to talk about something that you've passionately believed in, and people may not realize it, but Zoho has been in existence for almost 3 decades now. You've often said that for more than 29 years, we've been bucking Silicon Valley trends. If I were to ask you today, Mr. Vembu, as you look back at the journey that Zoho has made, what have been some of your biggest contrarian bets so far?
Yeah, well, building Arattai would be a contrarian bet by itself. And building all of the email, the office suite, those are fairly big contrarian bets. And building out our rural development centers, starting in Tenkasi, where I live right now, that is a big contrarian bet. Our Zoho schools of learning, an alternative to college education, that's a contrarian bet. But all of these, I want to be clear, these were not made in the spirit that to be a contrarian. In fact, I'm a pretty conventional person in many ways, right? And so what is contrarian is really we are deriving these from first principles. Well, there's a lot of talent, rural talent. Let's go seek them. A lot of times college is not adding much value, so let's build alternatives. And we need all of these technologies to be built in India. Otherwise, we risk technology getting weaponized against us. That's why we need to build all of this technology. And that thinking then culminates in something like Arattai. So really, it's what is, if you go look back behind the curtain on why these seemingly contrarian bets are made, there's a very rational thought process behind it. That I want to emphasize.
Now, I get that, and I will build on that in just a second. But, you talked about wanting to make in India because you believe that technology is often weaponized, can be weaponized, is being weaponized. But, 2025, you're having if I can call it that, a breakout moment in India. You've got government ministers tweeting, saying that they're moving to Zoho, urging and nudging other citizens to move to Zoho as well. But does it surprise you that Zoho Mail, for instance, turned 15 in 2023? Zoho Office Suite, the upgraded version, was launched in 2018. Zoho Workplace was launched in 2017. And yet, we're now in 2025 when you're finally having this breakout moment in India. How do you explain that?
Yeah. So, first of all, the technology had to have been built in order for it to be adopted. And if you look at Zoho Mail, nearly 2 years ago, the government, the NIC, selected Zoho after a very long, arduous process of evaluation, a lot of audits, over 18 audits performed, and it was selected. And it is now already serving a fairly large number of users within the government. I believe about 1.5 million now, and growing. So this happened well before this current episode. Now, how did we arrive at this moment? It's basically I call it the Swadeshi awakening we are going through. And I've been part of the whole Swadeshi movement, Swadeshi technology movement for a while now. In fact, I am very proud to be associated with the Swadeshi Jagran Manch and Sri Sundaramji from Madurai. And I've actually had long conversations about the need for technology self-reliance in India. And that now message, I'm very happy to see this awakening happening. This is not only government. I want to emphasize this Swadeshi movement is happening across our private businesses, our educational institutions, our common citizens, right? Everywhere I see this. And the reason for that is, of course, the global landscape, which has changed fairly dramatically. And to be honest, some of us expected this global landscape shift because, I always felt the global trading system itself was built on a very, unsound foundation. And that was prone to collapse, and it's creating these conflicts. And those conflicts, once they emerged, we can see that on why we need the Swadeshi movement now. So I'm very happy to see the awakening happening right now.
Well, you talk about this Swadeshi awakening, Mr. Vembu, but I want to understand from you now that where does this now lead to? What do you believe the next steps will need to be? Because you're a firm believer in R&D. In your vocabulary, R&D has also come to mean rural development, which is a large part of the ethos at Zoho. But what do you believe the next steps will need to be, both as far as private enterprise are concerned, as well as the government in terms of policy to ensure that we build on this momentum of self-reliance, that we build on this momentum of creating Indian technology for India and for the world as well?
Yeah. If you look at today, technology has come to govern every aspect of our lives, be it in education, in healthcare, our daily interactions with our friends and family, all of it mediated through technology now. So technology is pervasive. It surrounds us. It envelops us. In fact, we are often in a cocoon of technology today. So it's important to ask who controls the technology. And that's the awakening that is happening, and social media to all of it, and the power they have over us. So we must gain that power back, both as nation and as individuals. That is the moment that is starting to happen now. So I do believe that with this awakening that's happening, what needs to happen now is we have to identify all of the critical technologies. And not just in software, not just in what we consider digital technology or AI, any of that, but even things like metallurgy, in material science, in drones, in robots. All of these technologies, we have to have a very strong investment going in. These are very long-range investments. We cannot produce any magical results. For example, fighter jet, that can be a 10, 15, 20-year project. But we need to have very strong investments going in, long-term investment. We have to assemble the teams, empower them, and then get out of their way. Give them the freedom to dream and invent and create. That's the approach we have taken. That approach actually works because we have the talent pool, we have the dreamers, we have the hardworking engineers and scientists. We have to put them to work in this nation.
Well, speaking about, investments, and I know that you've often believed that a lot more needs to be done to create a long-lasting R&D culture, because as you point out, Zoho was not built in a day, and many of these technologies that you speak of will not be built in a day either. Now, there has been, perhaps for reasons well known, lack of appetite, but also constraints as far as capital are concerned. Private enterprise has not invested as much in R&D as it ought to have. The government is now starting to invest in R&D as well. Where do you believe the challenge lies? How do we unlock the kind of R&D investments, the R&D spends that are required, that are necessary to meet the objectives that you just spoke of?
Yeah. So first of all, I want to say R&D by itself is not really hugely capital intensive. It is hugely brain intensive, but it's not capital intensive. It's time intensive in the sense that it can take 5-10 years to produce meaningful, commercially viable technologies that are, that can go win in the marketplace. And even to match the global competition, to even replicate the capabilities that other countries have, it takes time. It takes time. That's our message throughout. And it's not just the capital. We cannot say, hey, I'm willing to put $20 billion. Can we get all of these technologies right now? That's not possible because a lot of these technologies, they are not actually available at any price to purchase. They're a lot of them under export control, or a lot of them, other countries hoard them. So it's important for us to realize that other countries hoard these technologies. So our only option then, realistic option, is to go build the teams to do this. And it's not only an investment. And investment is important, but the more equally critical part is getting that R&D culture right. And the R&D culture, I'll describe it for you. When I'm sitting with engineers, my title, none of that matters. We are a group of engineers, we are trying to figure out a problem. And that is how most of the work happens in Zoho. All of the titles, all of these really don't matter at all. This is something new to a lot of companies, but it's essential to get R&D right. If you look at companies that do cutting-edge work in any technology, you will see that they have this culture of this maker culture, this engineering culture, this figuring things out culture, the lack of that whole, formalized, very rigid hierarchies. All of that is important. So it's as much a cultural challenge as an investment challenge. That's something that I really repeatedly emphasize.
I think that's important that you point that out, that it's not just about capital or investment, it's also about creating a culture of recognizing talent, appreciating talent, and as you pointed out, getting out of the way. But let me ask you this in the context of the challenge that the Indian IT services sector is faced with. And it's not the first time that we've heard this question being asked, that what next now as far as the IT services model is concerned? Is it going to continue to be relevant, and so on and so forth? How do you see the problem today? How do you see the challenge that's facing the Indian IT services sector? Because this is a huge job generator for the country. It's also a huge forex earner for the country. What do you specifically see as the challenge and the way forward?
Yeah. So the challenge is, of course, all of these changes happening. And one increasing challenge is the productivity that is coming in the traditional kind of IT services work, the level of automation, driven in part by AI, but also by a rise of tooling, all of it, where maybe what used to take 6 months to do can be done in a month. That's a challenge because a lot of employment was riding on this. At the same time, we have an asset. We have a large number of people trained who know a lot of technologies, and we have to imaginatively use them for other purposes now. It's a reinvention required. So this is a time of reinvention. And our services companies also have another advantage. They do have fairly large pools of capital available to them. They have often fairly substantial cash hoards. They still have massive cash flows. And they have the human knowledge base, the people who can get this done. So what it requires is imaginative leadership that set people free, set up small teams to go after specific opportunities. I believe with the right vision, it can be done. I sincerely believe it can be done.
This aspiration of India moving from a services nation to a product nation, that's an aspiration and ambition that you've spent the last 30 years trying to fulfill. Are we anywhere close to making that transition? Is it a next 5-year, 10-year transition? Do you believe we're at an inflection point today? How do you see this transition from services to product?
Yeah. So it is at least a 10-15-year journey, but it is also, there is a kind of a backloading effect. So what I mean by that is, a lot of these you toil for long periods, seemingly without any magical things happening, then a lot of these compound. It's the nature of these exponentials, where it looks like an exponential, or you can think of it like a hockey stick, where in the beginning it seems slow, 3 years in, 5 years in, I don't see anything magical. And then these efforts compound, they build up on themselves. And then maybe the 12th year, 13th year, 15th year, you start seeing, it's growing very rapidly. That is what we need. That's why we need to invest right now to reap the rewards in a decade or so from now. And I don't see any real shortcut there. Maybe we can license some technologies wherever it's available. We can license technologies, build on a foundation that's already erected. But still, we have to figure out all the technologies we license too. Just because somebody gives you all the technology doesn't mean you can just immediately build on it. We need experts who understand it, who completely grasp it, then we can improve on it. So all of that is needed, and that still takes time. So which is why I think the best time to start would have been 40, 50 years ago. The next best time is right now.
Well, you know, speaking about what you mentioned earlier, that this is the time to gain back power, and you talk about the Swadeshi awakening. You know, we've been an open market. We've allowed MNCs to come in. This is now not just their largest talent base, but also amongst their largest consumer bases, amongst their largest customer bases. So how do we balance this Swadeshi awakening with the fact that this is now an open market, trading with the world, allowing companies from the world to invest and set up shop in India? The China model, the China template clearly doesn't seem like an option for us any further.
Yeah. I don't believe this necessarily the China model for us. I believe we will remain an open market. I think we should. I do believe that. At the same time, we have to ensure that we have sufficient technological base here. We are sufficiently good in sufficient number of technologies that we can trade on equal terms with the world. And nobody can hold weaponized technology against us. That's really the key. So that's why I distinguish between the word self-reliance, just to me trading on equal terms like that, versus self-sufficiency, where try to do it all ourselves, that we won't trade with the world. I don't think that is the correct model. Even China is a trading nation. They just close themselves off a little bit more than maybe what we can do realistically at this point. But I do think that we should be self-reliant in the sense of being able to trade on equal terms. In this, another important matter, for example, there is a global capability center, GCC boom in India.
Yeah.
We can require some useful regulations here, force all of the IP built up in these centers to be registered in India, and ensure that India does have the right to license these technologies or right to use these technologies without somebody else's export controls, all of it. This is an important point. There are times where an IP is built in India by Indian talent, Indian citizens residing in India, and yet some other nation gets to control whether India can consume the products from it. Can India buy those products? That is not acceptable. No, you're building it in India with Indian talent, with Indian citizens here. They should be subject to Indian law. Indian customers should have the right to buy those products. I think all of these have to be brought in legislation, and Indian taxes must be paid on that IP. There is today, you cannot allow the global capability centers to be treated only as cost centers, where they will simply send about the amount of money required to pay the salaries and nothing more. A part of the profit has to be booked in India and taxes paid in India. There must be regulations around all of this. Then we can benefit from all this trading, and we also can prevent technology built in India being weaponized against us.
Mr. Vembu, it's an important point that you raised there, and you're right. We're seeing this boom as far as global capability centers are concerned, 1,800 or 2,000 at last count, if I remember correctly. The government is also now very keenly backing them. There was a mention of GCCs and a GCC framework, even as far as the budget is concerned. What you're saying, have you discussed this in any formal or informal fashion with the government? Is this the thinking within policymakers as well, as far as GCCs are concerned? And do you believe that if India were to go down the path that you're suggesting, which is to ensure that IP is retained in India, that there is tax paid here in India, that it would act as a deterrent to further investments in GCCs?
Yeah, always this question comes up, right? Will it be a deterrent? I tell you, GCs are coming because we have the massive talent pool here. No other nation, not even China, has the potential talent pool, the latent talent pool that we offer. No nation can match this scale today. So we must be more confident about ourselves. If we do this, maybe some companies, initially they'll always complain, right? Everybody wants it to, have it too easy, right? So they'll complain. But if we insist, they'll swallow hard and accept the terms. That's how all these negotiations work. But we must start insisting, and this is something that I've already started offering as a suggestion. GCCs must face a similar thing to Indian companies do, which is the IP is registered in India, and IP is available to Indian companies and Indian government, all of it. Third, taxes are paid in India. All of this we must try to ensure through regulation.
You said that you've offered this as a suggestion. Have you heard back from the government? Do they take your suggestion on board? Are they in agreement? Is there resonance for your suggestion within government?
These are all, ongoing conversations, right? These are not, this is obviously, it will take a while to achieve any kind of a consensus. Obviously, what the point you mentioned, would it be a deterrent? Would it stop the capability center GCC boom that's happening in India? I don't believe so. But I'm sure that people will argue I'm wrong on this. I'm happy to have the debate. So this has to be debated and settled. It's not something for me to decide, but I can only put forward a suggestion,
Well, I'm sure that this is going to certainly spark a debate, Mr. Vembu. I would imagine that a lot of people are going to weigh in on the point that you've raised, and perhaps we'll get to see reactions coming in and see which side or which direction the wind is blowing as far as this particular issue is concerned. But let me come back to Zoho now. And you said designations don't matter. But at the end of the day, you've moved on as CEO now. You are the chief scientist. What excites you today? Arattai, of course, is having its big breakout moment, as we just discussed. But what excites you today? What are you feeling most concerned about? And what would you prioritize as chief scientist today?
Yeah, I am working in code. I go to bed with code and I wake up with code. So I am about 70% of the time immersed in code. So all of this time I'm spending thinking about it. When I'm waiting in the airport, I'm thinking about something, I'm reading about something about code, all of that. So that's where I am 70% of the time on it. And I like spending time this way. Technology is the most vital, crucial thing we do. And we have still a lot more to do in Zoho. So that's what I'm focused on. And I do have reviews with the Arattai team almost every single day now, follow up. And we are actually rolling out all of those updates as we speak. So there's a lot more coming there. And so my own personal time is focused on building technology, mostly code.
And I think another debate that is currently underway is whether a company like Zoho should approach the public markets. Should it be a listed entity or not? I know your thoughts and your views on that, and you're not the only person who believes that staying private has its own benefits. But is this a philosophical issue? Is this an ideological issue, Mr. Vembu? Or would you at some point in time believe that perhaps that would be the right thing to do for Zoho?
Yeah, so this is also a philosophical point of view here. Even in America, recently, there was a suggestion that maybe they should not have quarter-to-quarter reporting, maybe only once in 6 months, right? And which tells you that even America is thinking about these problems, this very extreme short-termism by companies. Now, if you have to report every quarter, you are optimizing for that reporting, so your decisions inevitably get colored by it. Here, forget 6 months. Something like Arattai has taken 5, 6, 7 years to arrive here in terms of the product, and we still have ways to go. And we don't have any immediate revenue potential. Purely on a profit and loss next quarter or 3 quarters from now, it makes no sense. But as a nation, we need to invest in these technologies. So the public markets, even the VC investment, is not necessarily the best vehicle to support all this long-term technology development. People always will point to a Google or Microsoft and say this, but they forget that there's a lot of prior work happened before all of this came into public markets. Not just necessarily in those companies. There was R&D happening in Stanford. There's R&D happening in the broader ecosystem. Today we are having to do this within companies, a lot of it. And so staying private is what allows us to invest in these and not have to worry about daily stock fluctuations. As a practical matter, I've seen this in public companies in the US. this daily stock fluctuation becomes a matter of huge distraction for everyone. So I'm very glad that we are not dealing with that right now.
What's the next milestone then, Sridhar Vembu, as far as Zoho is concerned? You know, you're operating here in India, but again, many people may not realize that you operate across different geographies. You've got data centers in, I think, 19 locations at last count. Does the global ambition, the global aspiration remain as strong? And, you know, in terms of using your money, of course, to build your own capabilities, but to also nurture capabilities of other Indian developers, other Indian startups. Is that something that you would choose to do?
We are already doing it, ma'am. We have invested in at least about 10 deep tech companies in the last 4 or 5 years. All of them are busy developing the technologies. Some of them are known, like Signal Chip, and there are drones, and a lot of things are being built right now. All of them in the labs or prototype, or in some in early field trial stage. But they'll all, in due course, they'll mature and come out as products in the market. So we're doing our part there. And in terms of our own evolution, we are evolving in medical, med tech, in robotics, and all of these fields. We are investing, having heavy R&D investment. As I mentioned, R&D investment is not expensive, but it is time intensive. We cannot expect immediate returns. Those are the kinds of areas we are actually investing in right now.
You know, I know you're not a big believer in cryptos, or perhaps not a believer at all in cryptos. You continue to back gold. But what about AI, and why this non-believer attitude as far as cryptos are concerned?
Yeah. So, you know, ultimately we are looking for a secure, what is gold, right? It's a store of wealth, as I say. Traditionally, it's a store of wealth. If you have some surplus savings, you buy gold. To this day, most Indians, and particularly Indian women, that's what they do, and it's actually a good thing. I actually believe it's a good thing that it's a store of wealth. It sustains across decades and generations, and so that is our traditional store of wealth. Now let's apply that same principle to crypto. What is it? It's a string of bits. It's digital information. It's like a file that you have it in your phone or something, or securely in a server. What it is backed by is a global system of exchange where these bits are worth something. Okay? It really is conditional on the existence of that global the network, and can that network be stopped by some state actor or a non-state actor? All of these questions arise. If you have gold in your possession, you have gold. You know, you have it. You can use it, right? You can sell it. But I don't know about Bitcoin or any of these long term. So these assets, long term store of wealth, can only be proved long term. I mean, here's a critical question. In 2050, 2100, would still Bitcoin be around? That's the question. And, you know, that can only be proved after maybe some of our lifetimes, maybe mine. But only after that does the proof actually arise. Having survived hundreds of years, then it can survive hundreds of years more. Gold has survived thousands of years.
What do you think?
That's why I am not a believer.
Will it still be around in 2050?
Well, the fact that I'm avoiding it tells you that I'm not very sure about this question, right?
Yes, that is very clear. But on AI, because again, that's, you know, since we're talking about debates, there is a debate on whether we're in a hype cycle at this point in time, whether we're likely to see any kind of a correction. The valuations, of course, completely mind-boggling. But what do you make of not just the valuations, but the value that AI is creating today and what it means over the next few years?
Yeah. First, objectively, there's a lot of what they call round tripping, very questionable financial maneuvers going in the world of AI, where, you know, one company funds another and that becomes revenue, and there's a lot of this round tripping going on right now. Okay, many people have posted about this, pointed this out, all of that. So these valuations, extreme valuations, are often supported on just the hope that all of this will work out. And we have seen that movie before, and it doesn't end well. In fact, independent of e-commerce was a bubble in 2000. We are all buying everything online today. But the companies that were in a bubble, most of them did not survive, except Amazon. Most of them did not survive. So that's why it's important to distinguish between the usefulness, the long-term usefulness and potential of a technology versus the immediate financial bubble. Financial bubbles don't last even if the underlying technology, whether it's fiber optics, whether it's e-commerce, all of these proved very beneficial. This call is being carried over fiber optic lines. So the technology works and it's useful today. But it doesn't mean all the tens of billions poured in 2000 got a meaningful return. It's exactly the same. For AI, the risk is that a lot of smaller models that you can run on your phone or your computer, they can get the job done as well as this big giant data center based AI. And then that raises also the other question of the energy impact of AI. Today, all these data centers require massive power stations, power plants, which, in India, we already, we are sufficient power we have today. But if we have to unleash all of these massive AI data centers, would we still have enough power? Yeah. Can we build all of those power plants? So these are important questions. So that's why I am all for a energy efficient AI. But the current frenzy ignores all of these questions, simply pours money. Trillions of dollars, not just billions anymore. It's 10 to the power 12. So that's why I think I'm not very comfortable with the current boom. But I also am a believer in the long-term potential of this technology, particularly the technology that has applied, has brought to in an energy efficient way to your end devices, all of it.
Well, not very comfortable with the current boom and a lot of round tripping going on in AI. That's, again, an important point that you make there, and a point that is one of the global debates that is currently happening online and, of course, offline as well. But, Sridhar Vembu, let me end by asking you, as you look at the world today, there are geopolitical challenges, there's geopolitical uncertainty. One day we see export controls, the next day we see some deals being done, and so on and so forth. As a technology entrepreneur today, what are you most worried about? What are you most concerned about? What would you ascribe as the biggest risk?
Yeah. So the biggest risk is that the global system of trade we have today has rested on very shaky foundations. That has been true for a long time. All the tensions you see, all the trade frictions actually came directly from it. In fact, you can trace it back to the global financial crisis, how it was supposedly resolved with all of the QE and all of the money printing, all of it. In fact, that is also why I prefer gold. I do not trust the global system of this monetary base that is being built over the last few decades. Now, coming to this, that is the biggest risk to the world. It's not from this trade policy or that. It is that the entire system is on a shaky foundation. And it's prone to, severe malfunction. And unfortunately, if this AI bubble collapses, the collateral damage it could inflict to the global trading system. Because a lot of America's GDP growth is now coming from AI investment. All these data centers and associated technologies. And if that investment boom the bubble hits its pin, that could have actually global repercussions. That's what I'm most worried about. It's really not just a technology risk, it's actually a financial risk.
Bubble? Do you believe that we're in the midst of an AI bubble today?
Definitely, I do believe that there is a very strong bubble element to it. As I repeat, very useful technologies could still be in a massive bubble. The bubble could burst, and the technology development can continue long term. It happened in wireless, it happened in fiber optics, it happened in e-commerce. And similarly, AI could be useful in 15 years, 10 years, but still it could be a massive bubble today. Those two things are not mutually exclusive.
Yeah.
So, and if this AI bubble, current bubble, the financial bubble we are on, as opposed to technology development, if it bursts, it poses a risk to the global financial system itself, the trading system.
A quick update from you. Since the time that we've seen Minister Vaishnav, Home Minister Amit Shah and many others tweeting about it, we've of course seen that big surge as far as the Arattai numbers are concerned. But, have you seen a big up move on Zoho Mail, Work Suite, etc. as well?
Definitely. We are very grateful for their support, and and we are very proud to receive the support as Indians, patriotic Indians. We are very grateful that our government is recognizing this. We are definitely seeing an uptick, not just from government, from the private sector, from from non-profits, all around we are seeing an uptick. That's a surge in that whole Swadeshi sentiment around the nation.
Sridhar Vembu, many thanks for joining us. Appreciate your time here on the record. We wish you the very best of luck with your future plans. Thanks very much for today. With that, it is time for us to wrap up this edition of On the Record with me, Shereen Bhan. From all of us on the program, many thanks for watching.